Hi everybody, welcome to Sports for All podcast. I'm your host Eden, and today I've got some really great guests. So do you want to introduce yourself? Maybe Holly, we'll start with you first.
Yeah, hi Eden. Thank you so much for inviting us. So my name's Holly Grimes. My pronouns are she, her. I work for Greater Manchester Moving, so I'm our strategic lead for sport partnerships. So my role is essentially to work with our partners to bring sport and physical activity within easier reach of people, particularly those who face the sort of biggest barriers to being active.
Amazing, thank you so much, Holly. And Emily, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Emily. I use they them pronouns. I'm originally from Bristol, but I've moved to sunny Manchester. Loving being here the last few years. I work at Geo Moving. I am our people and leadership lead. My role is like a really broad one, but it's basically about encouraging the workforce, so that's paid and voluntary, to help other people move more, so to be more active and see how that ties into all of our work.
Amazing, thank you both so much. I'm so excited for our conversation today. So, my first question is, do you want to tell us a bit about your sporting background, how you got involved in sport initially, and how has this led you now into your roles working within sport? Emily, do you want to go first this time?
So I've always played sport. It's just something that like we were encouraged to do. I'm one of four, and so it was very much like family picnics. Who's bringing the frisbee? Who's bringing the cricket bat? Um, and so I naturally kind of started playing team sports. I played football, cricket, and netball growing up. I just absolutely loved playing all three of those sports. It was a huge part of my childhood. It was what I was doing outside of school basically every day. And I also became a qualified cricket coach, a netball umpire, and I also did some netball coaching. So I got to see some of that behind the scenes um, side of sport as well. Um, there was a while when I was kind of teenage that I thought that kind of a career in playing sport was going to be an option for me. Um, it was a bit of an odd one with particularly cricket, which is probably my strongest sport, was really taking off for women and girls. And I think if I was a few years younger, I might have got picked up. But the setup has just changed and it wasn't the right time for me. And I really love study and academia. So I thought, let's go all in on that. And I kind of pushed aside my thoughts of having a career in sport in any way. So I went to uni, I studied geography. I left and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to help people. And so I thought, let's go work in the charity sector. That seems like a good way to help people out. So I got a job at LGBT Foundation, which is an LGBTQ plus health and wellbeing charity. And whilst I was there, I did quite a bit of work with Holly actually at Geo Moving. And I'd never heard of them. I'd never heard of active partnerships, which is what Geo Moving is one of. And through doing a load of different projects with Geo Moving, I thought, wow, this is really cool that this organisation exists that helps get people moving more and helps people kind of see the love of sport and physical activity that I've always had. So yeah, it seemed like a good next step, and I've kind of stumbled into working in sport and physical activity now, in a way that I wasn't expecting, but I'm really happy.
That's so good. It's nice to see like your pathway through and then studying geography and then realizing actually, yeah, I still want to be involved in sport. I love that. What about you, Holly? What's your pathway been like?
Yeah, I'd say similar in some ways, and then a few differences as well. So I've always been interested in sport as well. It's always been a massive part of my life. From a young age, I've always played football. Was that a person in PE who just always wanted to win and was on every kind of school team. But really fortunate, I've always had positive experiences, positive role models, teachers, coaches, parents who really pushed me and inspired me to get involved. I think a big turning point for me was probably starting to volunteer in sport as well and to sort of give back. So I did some volunteering with Manchester City at the time when I was about 16, 17, and they paid for my level one football coaching qualification. Um, I think that was a bit of a catalyst really for me wanting to continue my studies around sport. So I did A level PE. Um, and similar to Emily, I really enjoyed sort of academia and I could have gone down a different route, maybe something like law or something a bit more, I guess, academic. And there's a bit of pressure sometimes to do that.
Yeah.
But actually, I really wanted to follow my passion, and I went to university in Birmingham where I studied sort of sport, physical education, and coaching science. That was a really broad degree, all different aspects of sport. And alongside that, I did some more volunteering, coaching in primary schools, which I did enjoy, but it just didn't feel like it was like my purpose in life, my calling. Like it just didn't feel like it was the best option for me. So I really enjoyed the aspects of my degree that were around like the sociology of sport, how does sport interact with politics, how do we make sport more inclusive. I decided to go continue my studies and do a master's back in Manchester. So I studied more sort of sport, business, management, and policy. And around that time, really tried to continue with volunteering as well. So I became a member of Manchester Football Association's Young Leaders Academy, became chair of that group, which was a really great opportunity to try and influence decision makers about the importance of listening to young people and youth voice within sport, and really try and influence change and make it a better place. And then had the opportunity to join the FA National Youth Council. So that was a group of sort of 15 youth leaders nationally trying to do that with the National FA, which was an amazing opportunity to really grow my network, understand more about myself and the opportunities available. And I think that really opened my eyes to the world of working in sport, and that actually you can have a really good career in sport. So I spent a couple of years working on a youth program, which had some links to sport, but I knew that eventually I really wanted to work in a space where I could influence the sports sector more directly and make it more inclusive. So a role at GM Moving came up. It was actually the second role I applied for. So I'd applied for a role a few years earlier and didn't get an interview. But I think it just shows the value of keeping doing what you're doing, keep working towards it, and eventually, that opportunity will come. And it was actually the people in leadership role that Emily now has. So I did that role for a couple of years. That was in 2022. So I've worked at GM Moving since then. Now in my strategic lead for sport partnerships role. So yeah, really grateful for everything that sport's given me, and that I now get to really give that back and help others to experience what sport has to offer.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you've had some like amazing experiences. And it's yeah, like you were saying, like it's about following what you love. There's quite a lot of pressure on young people to like pick something like really academic, but like you can learn so much from the different roles and experiences you have. And like you did so much volunteering as well. I'm a massive advocate for volunteering. I think it's great and you learn like so much and you gain so much from it. It's really great to hear your experiences. So my next question is, what have been some big inspirations for you both in sport but also outside of sport? Probably quite a big question. Holly, do you want to go first this time?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's good timing for this question because for anyone listening, England have just got to the semi-finals of the Euros and they just beat Sweden on a very dramatic penalty shootout. So I absolutely love the Lionesses. I think they're such amazing role models for young women and girls to show what can be achieved with, teamwork, resilience, positivity. And I really wish that I'd had that visibility when I was growing up. So it's great that they're now really paving the way for that next generation of people to get involved in football. I think more generally, I'm really inspired by people who overcome adversity and fight for what they believe in. And I think there are loads of great examples of that in sport. I've been really inspired recently by some of my friends, particularly who identify as trans and non-binary, and they've had some real difficulties recently in terms of accessing the sports that they love. But, I've been really inspired by them continuing to really show up, play the sports they love, even when there are so many barriers in the way to them. So I think sometimes we just think of the big shiny role models, but actually there are so many people just around me. And I think it's the same outside of sport, lots of people who inspire me, colleagues, family, friends. But similar to above, I think it's really those people who have a strong sense of values and purpose and who really try and use their voice to fight for what they believe in, and particularly for, to fight for communities who don't always have that voice. So I really try to sort of surround myself with people who do that and who are just trying to make the world a better place every day, as cheesy as it sounds.
No, I love that answer. I totally agree. I think it's the everyday people that we see who are still going and who are still getting involved and still showing up even though it can be really hard some days. No, I totally agree. That was such a nice answer. Thank you. Emily, what about you?
I'm just gonna copy what Holly said there, actually. That was really good. Yeah, I also had lost sleep last night watching the Lionesses. That penalty shootout was stressful. I think I woke up my neighbour's 2-year-old when we won and I screamed. Yeah, watching women play sport at a high level is always something that's really inspired me. I remember particularly the England women's team, like when Kelly Smith was playing. It's probably some of my earliest memories of watching sport. I'm a big cricket fan, and Charlotte Edwards, Sarah Taylor also really stand out. Um, I've got a really good story of me and Jill Scott actually. And there's this stage where when you're a teenager and if you like see a celeb and you go up to them and say hi, usually the celebs think it's like quite cute. They're like, oh yeah, yeah, we'll get a picture. But like when you're like seen as an adult, so I was in my early 20s, then it's a bit like what is this adult doing like fangirling over me? And it is a bit awkward, but I just can't help myself. So I was like working at a cafe Jill Scott came in, and I had to go up and be like, "Oh my God, Jill, I'm like, you're a huge inspiration. I remember watching you play when I was younger, and I just think it's brilliant what you've done for women's football and women's sport more broadly." And she's like, "Oh, do you want a photo?" And in my head, I'm like, "No, that's cringe, it's weird." So I was like, "No, it's too busy, Jill. I'm working on my cafe. I don't have time." Um, she came back actually a few weeks later, and she came straight up to me. She was like, "Emily, it's quiet now. Do you want that picture?"
Oh,
And I couldn't say no. So yeah, I did get a nice photo with Jill Scott, which was really sweet.
oh, that's okay.
Um, yeah, she's a sweetheart. Um, then more broadly, similar to Holly, like if you look into the history of like the LGBTQ plus civil rights movements, disabled people's rights movements, there are so many brilliant people out there that you've probably never heard of who dedicated their lives to making the world a better place and to making sure, like, for example, I can hold my girlfriend's hand when I'm walking down the street. Um, and those people inspire me. That kind of remind that we all have the power to cause positive change. And we don't have to be famous or the most successful person in the world to do that. Um, a real like personal inspiration for me is I'm really privileged. I'm very lucky. I'm white. I'm non-disabled. I'm middle class. I'm well educated. Um, and I've had a lot of privilege in life, which has meant that I've been able to get as far as I have. And I really want to use that privilege to uplift people that haven't been as lucky as me, and to try and make it a fairer playing field for all of us. So that's another thing that really drives me. And then just love of sport. I want everyone to see how brilliant this thing called sport is, um, and how much enjoyment and freedom and fun we can all get out of it.
Another amazing answer. And yeah, I totally agree. I think there's just so many people out there who, like you were saying, are showing up and are just, yeah, at least things are getting more like inclusive and hopefully making more positive steps forward. Because I know like when we were younger there wasn't a lot of like female role models, even like non-binary trans role models out there, but now people are speaking out a bit more, which is really, really positive. So thank you both. That was a great answer. So my next question is, what skills have you learned from being involved in sport and how have they helped you in life and also in your career now as well? I think Emily, do you want to start this time?
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you. A really big one, particularly as like a young person, being able to talk to adults, like it's so scary. And the only way you know adults when you're a teenager and you're a kid is like they're either your teachers or your family members, and it's a bit weird, you see them as your seniors. But when you get to play sport, like you're all on the same team, you're equals. And so I found it really useful just being like, oh yeah, I can have conversation with adults and it's not weird and it's fine. And it meant that like as I grew up and as I went to university and started working, like the idea of having conversations with adults like wasn't that scary. And it was definitely something that I know a lot of young people struggle with, and definitely something I struggled with, but sport really helped me with. Um, Teamwork's a really big one. I've always played team sports. Like you really do rely on other people. Um, and other people rely on you. So that need to work together, need to not be selfish, and uplift others is something that's really helped me as I kind of go into working in a team in my job. Um, the mental side of sport has actually been really big for me, particularly in cricket, which I'm playing at the moment. It's such a silly sport because there's so much time to think. Um, I mean, it goes on for days. It can. I don't play for days. I play for hours. And it means that you can really kind of trip yourself up mentally because you've got so much time to be like, oh, I'm not good at this. I'm not going to do well. And yeah, that is something you need to work on. And so I've put a lot of effort into improving my mental health, into trying to do a lot of things that mean that I'm better able to look after myself and kind of keep those demons out. And I think that's helped me in all areas of life. So I'm really grateful to sport for that. Um, and then the final thing I give a shout out to is it's really helped me understand how what I say and do can impact other people. I've always been in kind of captaincy roles and vice captaincy roles, and so I've had quite a bit of power over who's playing, what positions they're playing in, what they're doing. Um, and I think it's been really important for me to understand how what I say and do can really impact other people, and the need to really explain to those people what's going on in your head while you're making these decisions, and hearing from them about how it's impacting them, and kind of what they want you to see and understand about them and how they play. And I think that's made me a more well-rounded person, a lot more empathetic, and outgoing as well. So yeah, I owe a lot to sport. I'm really glad that it's always something I've done.
Another amazing answer. I totally agree with that. And some really interesting points as well. Like I feel like mental health and like the impact that has on you, being involved in sport like all your life, is really like important to address and like try and work out what is working well and what isn't working and kind of evaluate that all the time. And also really great point about talking to adults as well. I was actually speaking to my mum about that the other day, like how my friends who were involved in sport were more comfortable talking to even the parents compared to those who weren't. So, no, really interesting points. Thank you so much. Holly, what about you?
I don't know how to top that really. Like, Emily's covered a lot there. But yeah, I completely agree everything they've said. But just so many skills. I think teamwork, resilience, leadership, communication, confidence. I know for a fact that I wouldn't be in the role that I'm in. I wouldn't be working in sport. I wouldn't be, able to be so visible without those skills that I've learned through sport. Being able to, communicate with people effectively. Similar to Emily, I was a captain of a couple of teams growing up, so that experience of leading people and understanding people is massive. I think we learn a lot about ourselves and about life in a sense through sport, how to win humbly and gracefully, but also how to lose. Picking yourself back up from setbacks. Not everything's always going to go to plan, but actually it's how you conduct yourself and how you come back from that. That's the most important thing. So yeah, I think the skills you learn from sport are just so transferable to other areas of life, and that's why I'm so passionate about getting other people involved. I think for young people particularly, it's a really hard sort of time sometimes to know what it is you want to do and where you see yourself and to kind of stand out from the crowd in a sense when you're applying for opportunities or jobs. And I think sport is one of those things that can really help you to stand out and to learn some of those skills that are really useful in the workplace or in whatever it is that you want to go and do. So I think just the opportunity. I mean, I've been really lucky to travel the world as well through sport. The friendships I've made and the ability to kind of see different perspectives. And I think it's just really opened my eyes to so many wider possibilities. So not so much a skill, but just something I've taken is just so many positive experiences and chances to do things that without sport I wouldn't have had the chance to do. So yeah, similar to Emily, really grateful. And it's nice to have this conversation and to think about that because I think we sometimes get so wrapped up in it and take it for granted a little bit. There's been times where maybe I have fell a little bit out of love with football, maybe I've been playing a bit too much, or I've not been, playing my best or whatever it is. But actually, there's still so much more we can take from it. And I don't think we always realize as well the positive impact it is having on us mentally and physically and just keeping us going really through whatever it is that we've got going on in life at that point in time.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's really nice, like being able to kind of reflect, especially now we're older as well, on like how much it's really like shaped us as a person, sport, and how much we've learned from it and how much we've gained from it. And just like, I mean, if you have negative experiences, you remember them, but you always remember more of the nice experiences as well, hopefully. And that's something really, really positive. And also on the point about like skills and stuff, like I feel like when we're younger, obviously we don't realize what we're learning, and when you're applying for jobs, you're thinking, oh, maybe because I this is my first job, I don't have those experiences, but you actually have so much that you learn from sport and the opportunities that you've had through it, and you don't even realize half the time. So no, that was a really great point. So moving on to my next question then, what are some barriers and challenges that young people face getting involved and also staying in the sport? And do you have any advice for anybody listening who might be struggling with different barriers and challenges in their lives? Ollie, do you want to start this time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Emily will probably have some of the same and probably some additional ones as well. But we know there are loads of barriers, whether it's time, young people have a lot of pressure around exams and school and how to manage that time. Money can be a barrier, a lot of the stuff isn't free or it isn't cheap and actually if you don't have that, it can be an immediate, you know, practical barrier for people. Equipment as well, and I think again, I don't want to steal Emily's thunder, but I know they've mentioned before about the cost of cricket kit is just huge, and if you can't afford that, then it's a real kind of exclusionary factor. I think parental pressures, if sports considered something that within that, the family environment that is positive, or whether it's, focused on your studies or whatever that looks like. I think travel and safety are really important. So being able to get to venues easily and also to feel safe when you're making that journey and when you get there. And I think just finding that right sport or activity for you. I think often if young people maybe don't enjoy PE in school and they have a negative experience of PE, that can almost have a knock-on effect on then what they want to do outside of school. Whereas actually there's so many opportunities that they might just not be aware of, or they might not feel are for them. So I think my advice would be, really try and find something that you enjoy. Don't feel pressures to just enjoy what other people are doing. Like, try and find what works for you, try new things. If you're not sure where to look, speak to a trusted adult who can really help you to find opportunities that are local to you, relevant to you, that remove some of those barriers. And because there are free opportunities, there's work happening to try and make sure that people have stuff that's more on the doorstep. But I'd also say, it's not just on young people to overcome those barriers, it's on organizations as well. And it's on them to really make sure they listen to the voices of young people, make them feel heard and valued, be led by what it is that they want and need from sport rather than what we as adults think they need. Or we as organizations want them to need because that aligns to our agenda. I think that's a really, really key aspect of making sure that young people can not only get involved but can stay involved, is giving them that voice and that agency to say, this is what I want, whether that's kind of in terms of like more child-centered or young person-centered coaching on the pitch, but also off the pitch as well. So things like setting up a youth forum or setting up gathering feedback from young people, to really make sure that what their experience is reflects, what it should be and what they want it to be. So I think we all have a role to play in this. It's not on young people to kind of overcome those barriers. I think it's on us as, organizations within that sport sector to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think there definitely needs to be like more opportunities for organizations to get young people's insight and their own experiences as well. And I think a lot of the time they make wrong assumptions sometimes. So yeah, it's great to have that like youth focus, especially if you're a youth charity or organization. You need to get young people's insight. You can't do it without them. Thank you so much, Holly. Emily, what would you like to add to that?
I love the point that you two have just made around it also being the organisation's responsibilities and sport responsibility to listen to young people and make sure that the activities they're running are as accessible to as many young people as possible. Like Holly said, um, cricket's a really expensive sport. I think we often forget that the reason why people are good at sport isn't necessarily purely down to their natural ability. A lot of it is due to the privilege that they've had.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm really good at cricket. I wouldn't be as good at cricket, or I mean, I wouldn't even be playing cricket if my parents couldn't have afforded to buy me kit. Um, Cricket kit. I mean, depending on how much you want to spend on it, it can cost anywhere from about 200 to £1,000. And the pros have much more expensive kit than that. So there's that immediate barrier to being able to play. Um, that if you just don't have that money, then you can't get involved, which is a real shame. Obviously, different marginalised communities face huge barriers. There's a report recently done by Women in Sport called Black Girls in Sport, a breakup story. I'm really going to read a quote from it because I think it's really powerful. To play sport, all girls face the dual challenge of female puberty and systemic sexism, but black girls also face typecasting, racial stereotyping, and adultification. 32% of black girls say they are frequently penalised or get in trouble simply for expressing themselves in sport and physical activity. Another really powerful stat on this is a report by Stonewall done last year found that 1 in 4 LGBTQ plus people don't feel welcome in community sport groups or community team sports. So we've clearly got a really long way to go to the
Yeah.
point that all people feel like they belong in sport and they're welcome there. And then you've got the much bigger issues of, yeah, sport's really expensive. In lots of cases, it can be hard to access it because you might not be close to facilities that meet your needs. So yeah, we've got a long way to go. There's a lot of barriers, which is a real shame. Because I'd love to live in a world where everyone has an equal opportunity to take part in whatever sport they want and chase their dreams in that. Um, some advice, the point that you two made really well around organisations need to do the work. They need to tackle these barriers. Young people can't do it alone. For young people, I'd really encourage them to speak up. I know it can be really scary, but if there's an issue, if you see racism, sexism, homophobia, ableism, or you experience that, talk to your friends, talk to your family, try and unite, and speak out against it if you can. Change won't come unless we kind of call out those horrible behaviours which are stopping people from being able to get involved and have a safe and fun time. Um, Other advice is like remember you've got your whole life ahead of you. I think a lot of young people, for whatever reason, it could be they're having a bad experience in PE, it could be that yeah, they can't afford cricket kit if we're going back to that. They give up on sport and they think that's it. I can't do it now. I'm never going to go back to it. But hopefully, we're all going to live really long lives. And throughout that life, you have so many different chances to get involved in new sports. Um, like I know loads of my friends have just taken up rock climbing, and that's something they'd never have thought about doing before. I've got family members who've just started playing walking netball, and that's the first time they've played netball since they were teenagers. So, remember life is long, um, and there's going to be so many chances for you to get involved in sport in loads of different ways. Um, then final advice is if you can't play, so for example, if you're injured or things just aren't working out for you right now, yeah, think about doing some volunteering in sport, thinking about getting some coaching and empowering qualifications. Yeah, follow your passions, see how you can get involved in loads of different ways to spread that love, build up your CV. Um, think about the loads of different ways that you can have a career in sport through those different qualifications and experiences. It's not all about just playing. There's a whole lot of extra work that goes into it and that you can get involved in.
Amazing, Emily. Thank you so much. So much there. It was a great answer. I love what you just said there about staying and engaged with the sport, even if you've got like barriers and challenges, and maybe you're not able to participate anymore for whatever reason. I know that's actually how I set up this podcast, funny enough, because I wasn't able to do taekwondo and I missed it, and that's why I set up this podcast. So no, that was really, really resonated. So thank you. So my last question is, what advice would you give to a young person wanting to get involved in sport but who might struggle with confidence? It's quite a big one. Emily, do you want to start this time?
Yeah, this is a big one. I'm looking forward to hearing what Holly says on this as well, actually. Um, I've got a few points. What we've spoken about earlier around sport being brilliant for your CV. I actually remember applying for the job I have now, which was, I think, my second full-time job. No, my third. I still had some experience in sport on my CV, and I spoke about it in my job interview, and that was some cricket coaching I did when I was at uni. So that experience that you have, I've got coaching that I did when I was a teenager still on my CV because it taught me some really valuable life skills that I could talk about in interviews. So, remember, just because it's not considered kind of traditional work, it's not a part-time job working at Pizza Hut or whatever, you actually can learn a lot from the experiences you have that you can talk about and bring into job interviews and job applications. Um, so yeah, remember you've got those skills and you can talk about them, and it's great when you do. Um, be proactive in working yourself. Like if you're struggling with confidence, sit down and ask yourself why. Why don't I have the confidence in this? What needs to change so that I feel more confident? Um, what little steps can I take to build that confidence up? You know, is it that I feel like I've not played sport for a few years, and so um, I don't want to enter that world again. I've left it. I'm just not sure about coming back to it. Can you bob down to your local netball club on a Monday night and just see if they need a hand with coaching some kids? Can you volunteer at your local park run? Is there some things that feel manageable to you that you can just put kind of your foot back in the door and build up that confidence again? And slowly over time, you'll grow and become more confident and be able to push yourself more into those bigger opportunities that originally must have seemed really out of reach and really scary for you. Um, then my final thing is just remember you've got your whole life ahead of you to figure out what you want to do and where your in is, what works for you and what makes you feel happy. Um, I think particularly because school is so fast paced, like you go through the years, you've got all your exams, your GCSEs, your A levels if you do them, your BTECs, your apprenticeships, and everything's coming at you. And you kind of feel like you need to have everything figured out straight
Mhm.
away. You've got to know what you want to do for your whole life when you're 14, which is so silly. So just breathe, it's okay. You're probably going to work for like 40 or 50 years. You will be able to find something that you love in that time. And yeah, you might have to wait until you're 40, which feels like ages away. But if you find it when you're 40, you could work in that career for 20 years and have a brilliant time before you retire. So yeah, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Give yourself a lot of love, a lot of patience. Be kind. Pull on the resources around you, your friends, your family, your local clubs, and yeah, back yourself.
Such amazing pieces of advice. Yeah, I think there is so much pressure on young people. Like it's insane. You just have to have your whole life figured out by the time you're 18, 16, even 14. Like it's crazy. But the experiences that you take and like you learn throughout that journey will get you where you need to be. That was great. Thank you, Emily. Holly, what about you?
Feeling very inspired by this conversation. Yeah, that was great, Emily. I think it don't have loads to add. I think Emily's really covered it, but I think something that I've really realized on my sort of journey over the last probably only the last sort of 5 or 6 years really is you don't get anywhere by staying in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's a nice place to be, it's a comfortable place to be, and we all like being there. But you do sometimes just have to really push yourself out of it, and you don't want to be pushing yourself too far that it feels unsafe or you feel like you're in your sort of panic zone. But the more we can stretch ourselves, the more we can challenge ourselves to do things that are a little bit difficult, and the things that feel difficult the first time, the next time you do it won't feel so difficult. I think it's trying to get ourselves into that growth mindset of actually like we you know it will get easier. I can do it. Just trying to really, recognizing that all these barriers exist that we've spoken about, and it's not as easy as just saying, I need to be more motivated. I need to, make this decision and be more confident. There's so many reasons why young people might not be confident. It's a really, really tough society that we live in at times.
Yeah.
But I think sport is one of those real shining lights that people can learn so much, they can develop so much. I think it's just really nudging yourself out of your comfort zone that little bit more every single time. If I think about when I started my first job out of uni, I hated public speaking. I didn't want to do it. Um, it was just something that just was so uncomfortable to me. And then my first job out of uni, I had to deliver assemblies to year 11 students. So sometimes I'd have to go in and deliver basically like a scripted assembly to sort of up to 300 year 11 students.
Mhm.
I hated it. It was horrible. It probably pushed me a little bit into my panic zone at times because it just was so didn't feel authentic to me. But actually, if I now think about everything that I've done since then and all of the opportunities I've had through this role included, I spoke at our conference in May on the stage at the Lowry, which I was still scared. Don't get me wrong, it was still uh, out of my comfort zone for sure. But because of all those little experiences that sort of built up to that and just really giving myself those opportunities to push myself, it just felt easier than it would have done. And it meant that actually now I can look back on that and be something to be proud of. So yes, it's difficult. Yes, there's other challenges, but I think don't do it alone. Grab a friend, go and try something together. Um, speak to young people who have similar interests to you and just work out what it is that you're interested in. Because I think for me, like I cannot underestimate the fact that sport has literally shaped every aspect of my life and largely through the fact that it's really helped me to find my people. I think one of my biggest, pieces of advice generally in life is find your people because they are out there, they do exist. Just because maybe you feel like you don't, you're having issues with your friends or you don't always maybe feel like you fit into a certain environment you're in, they're just not your people and that's okay. And I think it's about really giving yourself the best opportunity you can to go and find your people in your tribe and don't let that fear hold you back because when you do, it's so, so worth it. Um, and those people will just become your chosen family almost. So yeah, again, a little bit cheesy, but I think just take those little steps to push yourself out your comfort zone because it'll the impact that'll have on you and your journey will be so big.
Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree. I think over time it starts to get easier and you learn so much from those experiences as well. And if you hadn't taken that chance, then you wouldn't have got that opportunity. I definitely agree. That's all my questions. Thank you both so much. That was so inspirational and I loved having you both on. It was really good. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for having us. It's been a great way to spend a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks for being a fab host. Yeah,
Oh,
it's been a great discussion.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. It would be great if you could give it a follow and if you could give it a rating. If you want to connect with me further, you can find me on LinkedIn at Eden Byrne or on X at Eden71003.